Kierston Deal dazzles against the Cougars. Should you or should you not flip the bat down 8? We'll ask Alex Storako coming up on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's our weekly edition of the Locked On Sooners podcast with Alex Storako joining us to give us her insight into all things Oklahoma Sooners softball and college softball in general. Alex, thanks so much for being with us. Let's start back with the Houston series. It was a really important series, I think, for the Oklahoma Sooners, just to continue building that momentum as we enter the final stretch. So what did you see just off the top, big picture from the Oklahoma Sooners this past weekend?
I thought there was a lot of just quality at bats. There was a ton of just consistency that we saw from the lineup. And I think that's what we've been wanting to see and just developing just that quality part of no holes in the lineup. Everyone's kind of contributing in some way, shape, or form. And you saw that this weekend. There was a little inconsistency within Jada not being in the lineup on Saturday, but they took care of it no problem. And so it was exciting to see that, it wasn't a whole reliance on the home runs. I felt like we produced runs in a very just kind of old-fashioned softball and got it done on all cylinders this weekend against Houston, which is huge, especially kind of gaining the momentum into this last chunk of the season. Obviously, you have two regular season weekends coming up, one against UCF, obviously, and we'll get into that later in the show. But then the biggest one of them all is Bedlam, and I think just the anticipation of that is just growing and growing and growing. And so I'm excited to see how they kind of take that momentum from this Houston series and kind of roll with it as they go.
I would imagine, Alex, that one of the things that has warmed your pitcher's heart as much as anything this season is just watching Kierston Deal continue to develop and have her moments to shine. And, oh, by the way, she's the Big 12 Pitcher of the Week following a great week. What did you see from Kierston this past week?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's our first Big 12 Pitcher of the Week award. So I felt like a proud mom once again. But I feel like she's just continuing to prove herself, which is so exciting to see, being only a sophomore and just continuing to fight for a spot in this kind of starting role within the pitching staff that it is so deep. And so when you see her being able to spin the ball really well, use all quadrants of the zone, but also just have that kind of that swagger, that confidence, that attitude that we know and love out of KD, and all of, the sunglasses pics that you get out of her from the weekend. She's so much fun to watch when she has that kind of just attitude on the mound. And it takes a special kind of pitcher when you have that, and it just kind of elevates your game. And so I just see confidence after confidence within her. And so to see her kind of build that and continue to make a name for herself, I'm so happy for her and her getting kind of those accolades and that kind of notice. I feel like some people have kind of been doubting the pitching staff here and there. And so I'm excited for her to really show, what she's made of in growing in and continuing to build on, that foundation that she's kind of laid down to this point.
So she struck out 10 against Houston on Sunday, and it was one of those games where, okay, the Oklahoma offense put up some runs. They scored 5, but it wasn't this run rule extravaganza. You're not sending people around the bases. Technically, what'd you see? She was attacking the zone. She was throwing a lot of strikes. She was, making, the Cougars swing and miss. What was it that was really she was like honing in on and taking advantage of with the Cougars?
I feel like, in that Sunday game, it can get hard to kind of stay focused, especially if you've kind of already taken that series from Houston. And so I feel like with her being on Sunday, she kind of like takes them and really just kind of puts them down even more and just kind of dicing them up in a different way than maybe, Kelly or Nicole might. Or others. I know there was others that contributed this weekend, but with Deal, she really adds that kind of rise ball factor. She's got that off speed that adds to it. And when you have that 3-speed kind of component to your pitching, I think it just adds that kind of extra layer to try to figure out. And I know just in the past this season and even in talks with hitters, like now within the evolution of pitching within softball these days, when you add a third speed, it kind of is going into that kind of space of unknown within kind of that hitting and pitching dynamic. So it's really interesting to see how offenses do. And obviously she's dominating offenses that she goes up against. And so it's really cool that she's adding that layer to her game so early in her career, because it is such a hard thing to acquire when you get to this age and in college. So I'm excited for her. And I feel like she's really kind of tapped into not only that off speed, but, adding a third speed to her tool belt.
Oklahoma's got so many offensive weapons, even though at times it's you hear the fan base pining for more, I guess, offensively over the course of this season. And yet, the first two games especially were good offensive games for Oklahoma, and individually, Alina Torres. I mean, my goodness, in the first game had a big time breakout performance from her. Not that that's the first performance of its kind for Alina this season, but what did you see from Alina Torres?
I think she's just one of those kind of feisty hitters. And I think it really kind of showed her kind of fight, especially when you have the previous weekend where she was kind of in and out of the lineup. You saw a couple different combos from Coach Gasso this weekend. Sid Sanders wasn't in the lineup. And so when you have Torres kind of being able to not only play all sorts of positions, because she played first this weekend as well, she's able to kind of add that kind of just fight within a hitter. I feel like even building off of last year's resume that she had, she was one of the toughest to strike out. She's always putting something in play. I feel like, is so underrated in her clutch moments, and I feel like she's really gotten that place to shine this year. So it's been really cool to see her just build and kind of show her stuff in those moments that she's getting, because she's not one that's super consistent, whether that's in a position. She's been switching in and out with Avery Hodge at second base. So for her to really take advantage of those opportunities that Coach Gasso gives her, I think that's super special, because you could kind of collapse under the, maybe second guessing that you might take it from Coach Gasso. But I feel like she's really capitalized on a lot. And I think that's what makes her kind of that first name up when it comes to, those clutch moments when you think about it this season.
Kinsey's really been on a run. She's been really on a roll. In that middle game, she had a 2-for-3 day. She's just been so consistent. You talk about consistency. I feel like every game she's just hitting a single straight up the middle. How good is she? I know we've talked about it in the past, but she just does all the little things really, really well. Maybe not getting all of the accolades that like a TRA Jennings might or a Jada Coleman might, but arguably the best catcher in college softball, and is really, really good at the plate as well.
Yeah, I mean, she hit 600 for the weekend, and she's kind of hitting that peak within the stats of, hitting that 422 batting average for the season thus far. And so when you see her hitting those kinds of numbers, it just kind of excites you in a different way, because I feel like just within her struggles off the field of, injuries and everything that she's dealt with, she's someone that continuously works hard. She's one of the captains. She's always putting the team first. And so when you see that kind of person that does that and has those qualities succeed, it just kind of fires you in a different way, especially when you're just watching sports in general. That's that kind of story that everyone loves to see. She's the kind of captain and catcher you want on your team 100% of the time. So to see that success that's really kind of formulating for her is really exciting. And it kind of just, for me, I always giggle. I'm like, geez, everyone should take maybe a couple games off, because ever since she's been back, she's been on a just tirade of everything. And so she's been great in the lineup, and it kind of feels that kind of energy twist of maybe that lack of something within her absence in a couple of series that she was, resting her knees and everything. So I think she's a little bit more of that catalyst within that core of the lineup, because you don't really see her at the top of the lineup 3-4. It's more like 4, 5, 6 in the lineup. And I think that's also special to note as well, because there's so many options to get the party started. But for Kinsey, for some reason, I always joke with her. I'm like, no matter what, how come, like wherever she's at in the lineup, it's always Kinsey Hansen that's up with 2 strikes and 2 outs and something's on the line. It's always Kinsey. And it makes me giggle every time because it only stresses me out a little bit more, but she like 100% always gets the job done in some way, shape, or form. And so I love that out of her.
Riley Ludlam to me has been one of the awesome stories for Oklahoma, but obviously with Kinsey Hansen's return and her emergence, well, you love having Kinsey behind the plate. Riley Ludlam, do you see the DP role being something that she'll have carved out for the remainder of this season? And how does she stay ready, so to speak, with Kinsey back?
Yeah, I feel like she adds a different kind of pop when it comes to the lineup. She adds a different kind of stance. I feel like within Oklahoma softball hitters, you always see them kind of crouched down, powerful, and she's someone that comes to the plate, is super tall. She makes her presence known in a very different way. And so as a pitcher, I always take note of that. But she also just has such a cool story, such a cool presence, and she's fun to watch, truthfully. And so I loved her in the DP aspect when she was providing for OU when Kinsey was out. She made it work. She wasn't hitting the ball all the time, but she was, garnering all the walks. She was providing in any way, shape, or form that she could. And it's just kind of that stemming of being a catcher for the best team of, I'll do anything and whatever it takes. And I think that's what makes her special, just like Kinsey, in a way of kind of putting that team first. And it's kind of helping the team in any way, shape, or form. And that's what's exciting about Lud and her ability to do that in so deep in her college career too. I feel like that's also very special. And everyone and anyone that I've talked to about Lud and her coming in for this last year, she was just an absolute sponge. And it's so exciting to see in this day, just because in sports, you see someone kind of specialize, and if they don't get their way, they kind of pout. And so to see her kind of take anything in that she can to just keep learning, I think is super exciting.
We're going to be looking ahead towards the end of the season. The Oklahoma Sooners have 2 more regular season series before the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament. Where's Oklahoma at? And would you bat flip? Coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. We've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift up your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes out the guesswork of buying Major League Baseball, NBA, or tickets to your favorite concert venues around town. Go check it out right now. It's a great place to get your last-minute deals as well. Easy to find, and you get a great view from your seat right there in the app. They got flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals or select seats ahead of the game or event, and all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So go take the guesswork out of buying with tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So the Oklahoma Sooners were up 10-0 on Houston when Jazmyn Rollin came up and hit a towering shot. That's the best way to describe it. I'm hearkening back to Vin Scully days when I'm a little kid listening to the radio late at night in Southern California. Towering shot to deep right center field and flips the bat. I mean, I had this debate on social media, and I'm old. I'm going to admit it. I'm 41. I'm of the age where you hit your home run, you walk around, you run the bases. But we're in the bat flip era, and hey, bat flips are fun in big moments. Absolutely. Enjoy your moment. What'd you make of the bat flip, Alex?
I think some of them are cool. Like, honestly, like some bat flips, bat spikes, bat tosses, bat rolls are cool. It has to be like the perfect moment, the perfect situation, and it's got to be cool. I feel like when you're down 10 runs, 8 runs, it's probably not a good place to do that. And so when I saw it and I saw Hope Troutwine's reaction to it, I was like, I know she played under Coach Gasso when you have that kind of reaction, because I feel like even me being in the bat flip era, I still have that original reaction of like, what are you doing? We even tease Sid Sanders a little bit too, because she's one that probably celebrates really early, and hers is very minuscule of like, you know, she just puts her one up. She knows when it's gone, and it's very subtle. It's not showy. It's not, you know, extravagant. But like, I love that out of Sid because it's her little way of doing it. And I don't even think she does it purposely. It's just a natural reaction. Like, oh, that's gone. So I think in the moment of it, I wasn't a huge fan of it. And then it also came to kind of bite her in the butt in the series as well, when you bat flip and have a fly out. And I saw Hope Troutwine's reaction to that too. And I was like, yep, that's an Oklahoma product right there, getting mad because it's like, why aren't you running it out? And I know you'll see if you're an avid fan of Oklahoma softball, no matter where the ball is hit, they're running down to first base and touching that bag, like no matter what. And so it's kind of that hustle play, that kind of sportsmanship within the game. Unless you are walking it off and it is out of the park off the bat, what are we doing? That's my reaction.
Yeah, in the Sunday game, I kind of felt bad for Jazmyn Rollin a little bit, just because I've been there. I remember the closest I ever came to hitting a home run. I crushed it in an all-star game, all-star, tournament or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, that is gone. That is like my first home run ever. It's going to be a 2-run shot. It's going to put us up. We're rolling, and it like bounces off the wall, and I'm not running. And so instead of it being a double or a triple, it's a single. And then we're, doubled up to in the inning. And I'm like, come on, what did I do? And I then was on the bench later in the game. So,
right.
Bat flip at your own risk.
Yes.
So it's got to be the right moment.
The softball gods are going to come back at you for sure.
On that note, Alex, how seriously does Coach Gasso take that type of element of the game of, look, the Brent Venables quote is, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And I'm sure that there's some Gassoisms that I've missed in this opportunity here, but how seriously does she take something like, look, anytime we put the ball in play, you are legging that thing out to first base?
Yeah, I think it kind of stems from like just a respect the game kind of deal. It also goes kind of back to, I feel like, the saying that I've been taught by, Coach Gasso, from Hutch, from a very young age of whoever I played for. It was softball is a game of inches. And so you're either going to win by an inch or lose by an inch. And so you just kind of have to respect the game in that way. And I feel like that's just kind of like that sportsmanship of the game. It's the one of the unwritten rules of a diamond sport. And so I think that just adds to a lot of like that traditional aspect of it all. And I get doing it in emotion wise, but there's just certain things that in certain moments that you do and don't do.
So with that, then you are team unwritten rules of the game, or not in every instance, but in a lot of instances. Where do you fall in that? Because this is always
a trap question.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah, it is, admittedly. But do you subscribe to the unwritten rules of the game or not? Because I feel like this is everybody always wants that answer.
I feel like it depends on the situation. I feel like that's a big part of it. Whether that's, a highly emotional game, a highly emotional situation. I think there's so much that goes into it. But then also, I'm one of those really high emotion players, whereas like I don't know how Kelly Maxwell keeps a straight face the entire time on the mound. I definitely fall more into the Jada Coleman, Riley Boone, Alyssa Brito type of just emotional, excited player. And so I feel like in unwritten rules, it's a yes and no for me, which is, I know, not what you wanted to hear. But
well, and
what's the follow-up question, Josh? I feel like there's a follow-up question coming.
No, I would just say it as a pitcher, it took bravery for you to say that bat flips are okay in some instances. So you're all good. You're off the hook. Unwritten rules. You clearly have instances where you say, hey, if to grow the game, flip the bat every once in a while.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, if someone's bat flipping off of me, it should be hitting a building on the opposite street. And I've had those hit off of me before. So like if I was in that position, I feel like I would also want to bat flip if I'm hitting the ball off of the opposite side of the street building. And I think that also stems from just like one, the competitor out of me, two, the hitter out of me as well. A lot of that kind of flashes back of like the celebration wise of like Riley Boone doubling against Northwestern in the 2022 World Series, just like sliding into second and like banging on the base. It's like that kind of just like, she doesn't even know what she's doing and it's just coming out. Like, that's just what I feel. But like, I mean, you got to be so sure about it. And I think that's also part of the whole bat flipping and not bat flipping. And like that situation this weekend where it's like you're bat flipping, but it's a called out. So like on windy days, I'm probably not bat flipping.
Yeah, it's the raw emotion that has drawn so many people to the sport too. Like for so long, baseball has been so buttoned up. But and I think softball probably took some cues from that for a time, but now everybody's just opening it up and letting them be themselves. And part of what's growing the sport so much is you're seeing personalities on the field and you're seeing emotion and you're seeing, and I think that's what's getting exciting and what gets everybody so fired up about college softball all year long. And then obviously the NCAA tournament and the College World Series, like it's so fun because y'all are having fun.
Right. And like, I'm going to bring baseball into it and the fact that I'm a Cubs fan, but like, I feel like too, a lot of people grew up and knew who Javi Baez was. I mean, he was El Majo, the magician, like his tags at second, pointing for an out before like even tagging the runner. Like those are moments that I see, but then you have like Mike Trout, who's statistically like so amazing, but doesn't show that kind of thing. So it's like kind of that brand and everything. And so when I look up, I'll never forget like watching the Little Leagues that year, everyone knew who Javi Baez was, and that was their favorite player. But Mike Trout, who's like name of the game kind of deal when it comes to baseball, not a lot of people, unless you show like true appreciation for baseball and, watch a tough Angels schedule, like you don't know, like that kind of branding, that emotion side of it sometimes. And that's like kind of the comparison I see sometimes. And obviously Javi Baez has kind of fallen off going to the Detroit Tigers, but that's a whole nother thing. So I think that's that correlation and that just like comparison that I find like honestly super just truthful and bringing that kind of TV time and everything and OU softball. Like I was in the heat of it last year and we got a lot of hate for how we celebrated our walks and how we, just celebrated the little things. But I feel like that's also what propelled us to be who we were last year in a 61-1 season.
And as we gear up for the postseason, we're going to ask Alex, what does she need to see from Oklahoma over the final couple weeks to feel more confident than she already is about the Oklahoma Sooners? Coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball, it's in full swing. And guess what? FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic dub, an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Those Oklahoma college football numbers out there, Oklahoma still getting 9.5 points versus Texas. The Sooners over-under win total, 7.5. I still like that over a lot for Oklahoma with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
So we're not going to look ahead too far because we've got UCF this weekend. The Sooners travel to Orlando for the first road trip since taking that loss in the series to Texas. UCF, they are not a team to be slept on. I mean, this has been a tournament team at different times over the past few years. They've been pretty good in Big 12 play. I think they're sitting right now maybe 5th or 6th in the standings. What do you need to see from Oklahoma this weekend and then next weekend in Bedlam to feel more confident about where Oklahoma's headed?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of want to see them build on just offensively using all of their tools. There hasn't been a ton of home runs like we're used to seeing out of the Sooner softball offense. And so I really want to see, Jada and Riley Boone really tap into that like bunt, move the runners and just kind of make defenses work for outs. And so I feel like when they build and capitalize off of that, that's when you kind of feel that kind of momentum grow for their offense and you get those big innings and kind of opening up a game. Especially too, I think their defense has been phenomenal thus far. UCF, when you really break down their numbers, they don't strike out a ton and they don't kind of walk a whole ton. So what they're doing is putting the ball in play. And so I feel like that's also going to be another testament to the Sooner defense this weekend and staying consistent in that, and being really well and communicating in a lot of different ways. Coach Gasso has always preached, defense wins championships. So I know they take a lot of pride in that. So I think that's another big thing, as well as just on a pitching perspective, limiting the walks. And I think that's to any team, whether that's this weekend, next weekend, and the weekend prior, just limiting walks and that kind of free base aspect to the game. And that's kind of what they're going to really dive into, capitalizing on these next few weekends and leading into postseason. Obviously, this weekend is huge because you're growing the momentum for what's going to be probably one of the more exciting Bedlam series in a long time. So I'm excited for that. I can't wait to be there and just kind of feel the energy as we go into postseason for the Sooners.
This postseason run, I know we're a couple of weeks away from that. This is going to be an interesting one because the perception around Oklahoma is a little bit different than the last couple of years, right? It's, not that it matters what I think or what the overall set of softball fans think. I don't subscribe to it matters if you're the #1 overall seed or it matters that you're the favorite. But narratives are narratives, right? There's people that feel like this Oklahoma team, because they've lost a couple of times, isn't wearing the same bulletproof vest, so to speak, as the team you were on a season ago or maybe the season before that. Having said that's interesting going into the postseason because I still think Oklahoma, to me, is clearly the best team in America. I think they're the favorite to go win the national championship. How ready is Oklahoma to go try to get a 4th in a row? And similarly, what do you need to see the next couple of weeks? But how ready is this team? Because some feel like they're not.
Yeah, I feel like this season has kind of had like a slow build feel to it. I think on the bright side, they haven't played their best softball, and that's exactly what you're looking for throughout a season. And I would say even like at this time last year, we also weren't playing our best softball, and we only had lost once at that point. And so when you kind of are still slow building into a peak of your season, and it's still a couple weeks into postseason, I think you're in a really good place. Like I said, their pitching has done really well. I mean, Kelly Maxwell has really stepped up for them in a lot of ways. Kierston Deal is really making a name for herself, and Nicole May is staying consistent. And they have those bits and pieces that they're filtering in when they need some innings and everything. And I think that's a good part. Their cores, their defense. Yes, they make mistakes. They're human, but I know the narrative is there's a crack in the shield, they're beatable and everything, but I think the most inconsistent thing is maybe their offense, but that's because they're maybe not putting up the insane superhuman power numbers that you saw out of them in the last 3-4 years. So when you have a team that has this kind of capability, I just feel like I said, they haven't tapped into all the tools that they may have within just kind of creating that chaos on the field. I know that's, baseball's mantra, but I've always heard and said that, they stole it from softball and Coach Gasso first. So I think that, they need to kind of take it back and create some chaos and put the pressure on other defenses that they're facing. And I think that's going to be a really big name to their game in the next couple of weeks. Are they ready? Absolutely. I think they'll always be ready in my mind because, they have Oklahoma across their chest. Their head coach is Coach Gasso, and they have just the offensive brain of JT behind them, and they prepare like no other team. Yes, they might be, there might be a crack in the shield, but I don't think anyone is close when you really break it down. They're losing games like an elite team does. And Oklahoma Sooner fans are just not used to that. I think they'll always be ready. And I'm excited to see kind of how they take this postseason, because it is going to be a little bit different than, past years, and what they make of it and kind of build into, that postseason run that they're kind of known for.
The Oklahoma Sooners have the Knights in Orlando this weekend, and then Bedlam, where we'll get the pleasure of witnessing Lexi Kilfoyle firsthand coming up next weekend as well. And then it's Big 12 tournament time and NCAA tournament time. I'm excited to see how Oklahoma lands in the NCAA tournament field. We'll have Alex Storako with us through the rest of the season to continue to break down Oklahoma's postseason run. Make sure you follow her on Twitter at Alex Storako. Go check out her merch store, alexstorako.com. Follow Josh on Twitter at Josh on Ref, myself at John 9 Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Make sure you hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But until next time, she's Alex, he's Josh, I'm John. Boomer
Sooner.